people know.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron, and this is the game day preview for this weekend's action taking place in the Allianz National Hurling League. And there is a whole host of action to cover, a whole host of games, a whole host of talking points to discuss for this weekend's action taking place in the National Hurling League as things begin to heat up. It is officially the halfway stage in the Hurling League this weekend. There's only 2 more matches for teams to play after this weekend. And, we'll start to see more clearly who is going to be battling relegation and who is going to be taking up those league semi-final positions and so on and so forth. So if you are new to the channel, first of all, if you could hit the like button and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, if you could also hit the like button, share this out to your friends and family, helps the channel grow. And smash that like button. It will be very, very much appreciated. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything like that, if you could give the podcast a rating, helps the channel grow, all the rest. The content on this channel remains completely free. So I suppose we'll crack into this weekend's Allianz National Hurling League games. And we'll start off with Division 1B. As a matter of fact, Tipperary are going up against my own county, Dublin. So Dublin's last win over Tipperary was back in 2015 in the Allianz National Hurling League. And actually, as a matter of fact, Dublin have only won 1 in their last 10 meetings between these two counties. Actually, the last meeting between these two was in 2017. That was in a qualifier game in Semple Stadium. Tipperary scored 6 goals. As a matter of fact, that day they absolutely blew Dublin out of the water in a round 2 qualifier, absolutely blitzing Dublin. A very dark day for Dublin hurling indeed. But of course, Tipperary's quality. I mean, look, we know the talent that they have. Interesting enough, Shane McCallum scored 3-11 that day. He was absolutely extraordinary for Tipperary. But look, tables have turned quite a bit in the last couple of years, no doubt about that. I mean, since Tipperary's All-Ireland win back in 2019, there is definitely a bit of transition in terms of younger players coming into the team, older players obviously not there. You don't have Pádraig Marr there anymore. Bubbles O'Dwyer isn't part of the team anymore. Shane McCallum certainly getting older, still has bags and bags of quality, and I would still expect him to cause potentially a lot of damage in this game because he is named in the starting 15, and we'll get that team up on the screen in just a moment. But not only that, Tipperary are, they're definitely in a bit of transition, all right. They're definitely trying out a couple of different players, bringing a couple of new faces into the team. And they have been, without doubt, experimenting a little bit. Whereas Dublin, on the other hand side of things, definitely for me, have more of a settled squad. They've gone fairly strong so far in the league. Definitely on the up, really, when you look back at Dublin's win over Galway last year in the Leinster semi-finals. And things are on the up for Dublin. Look, there's definitely a lot of positivity around Dublin hurling at the minute. There's a good feeling about Dublin this year. There's a real expectation that maybe Dublin might be able to do something a little bit special this year. Maybe cause a couple of shocks. Maybe potentially go and win a Leinster Championship. Do I realistically think that will happen? I don't. I still think Galway and Kilkenny are a bit ahead of Dublin right now. I know Dublin have had a good record against Galway in recent years, but I still think Galway on their day should be able to beat Dublin. And I think if Henry Shefflin gets everything in order there, I would still have Galway and Kilkenny a little bit ahead of Dublin. But look, even the likes of Paul Crummy, who's come into the side, has looked impressive. He scored a goal the last day against Antrim. Danny Sutcliffe, one of the best hurlers in the country, really, on his day, hitting 2 points the last day out. And it was an interesting game against Antrim because Dublin, they were under the cosh at different points in the game. They were struggling in the first half. They were behind. You thought maybe there's a bit of a scalp on the cards. Antrim were looking pretty good. And actually going against the breeze in the second half, Dublin managed to find a way to win the game, and going away to Antrim in Corrigan Park. Antrim's first defeat in Corrigan Park, let's not forget, since 2019. So big result for Dublin to go away there and get the victory. I seen Shane Dowling actually tip Dublin to win this game against Tipperary, which I've got a lot of different reaction online. You know, I think a lot of Tipperary fans were thinking, you know, is that a Limerick man trying to wind them up, or you know, is there a bit of, you know, I suppose there's no love lost between Tipperary and Limerick down the years, no doubt about that. But look, I do think there's a realistic possibility that Dublin could turn over Tipperary, and we'll actually get the Tipperary team on the screen right there. So as you can see, this is the starting 15 that has been named. Now there might be a couple of late changes, as there always is, but I'll call the team out for those who are listening on Spotify or audio podcast. So Barry Hogan's in goal. You have a full-back line of Cathal Barra, Brian McGrath and Owen Connolly, a half-back line of Robert Burns, Seamus Kennedy and Ronan Marr, a midfield of Alan Flynn and Paddy Cadell, a half-forward line of Michael Breen, Jason Ford and Jared Brown, and a full-forward line of Jake Morris, Shamey Callanan and Paul Flynn. So that is definitely a strong enough team, no doubt about it, from a Tipperary point of view. You know, Shamey Callanan obviously coming back in there is the main thing. I thought Dennis Marr, to be fair, done well the last day against Kilkenny, contributing with a point and definitely caused all sorts of problems in and around there as well. Obviously, no Dan McCormick in the starting 15 as well. Paddy Cadell obviously coming in midfield. Ronan Marr coming in as well. So yeah, a couple of changes there from a Tipperary point of view. Definitely a much stronger team than the last day. And interesting enough, Barry Heffernan, who for me was absolutely fantastic the last day for Tipperary, hitting 2 points against Kilkenny. I thought he'd done a lot of brilliant work in that wing back position, as we're seeing Tipperary now sort of transition probably out of you know, they're not just hoofing the ball along like we've seen from a lot of old school teams in hurling down the years. Their wing backs are pushing forward. They've definitely increased their short hand passing. Their running game is a lot more prevalent now, in my opinion, as well. So they're definitely, you know, Colin Bonner's men are definitely probably getting up there a bit more with this modern day style of hurling. But look, at home, Semple Stadium, as I said there at the start, Tipperary have only lost one of their last 10 games with the Dubs. And actually, as a matter of fact, I think that statistic probably goes back further. I only looked at the last 10 games. I think that could go even further beyond that. So Tipperary, fantastic record. I've no idea the last time Dublin won in Semple Stadium. So look, it'll be a big scalp for Dublin. Can they do it? Tipperary in a bit of transition. Oh, I don't know. You know, Ronan Hayes didn't score the last day. Was quiet enough against Antrim. If he can come more alive in the game, we could have a chance. Defensively, Owen O'Donnell potentially picking up Shamey Callanan, and that could be one for the ages. But I would actually fancy Owen O'Donnell to get the better of Shamey Callanan there. So, you know what? I'm going to go for a surprise result. It is the league. So I'm going to go with Dublin to get the victory. And maybe there's a bit of bias involved there. But look, the Dublin footballers are atrocious at the minute. So we have to have some sort of positivity. Otherwise, we will go absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I think Dublin will have enough there to get the victory. We'll throw the league table up on the screen actually there, because I forgot to put the table up a little bit earlier. So Division 1B is obviously what we were looking at right there. And the top two in each division go into the league semi-finals, which is what makes this most interesting. And you can see there Tipperary and Waterford both in the top two at the minute. Tipperary with 2 wins from 2. Only a +5 score difference, interesting enough. So their 2 games have been extremely close against both Laois and Kilkenny, but they both came out on the right side of both of them results. So for Tipperary, if they could beat Dublin, it would be a big statement. And I think we're seeing with the Alliance National Hurling League, in my opinion, I think for teams that are in transition, that are trying out different players, that are trying different things out, maybe, you know, tactically trying to innovate their play a little bit more, we're seeing those teams take the league a lot more serious, as opposed to a Limerick, who very much know their best starting 15, know how they want to play, know how to go about navigating the championship. You know, with 2 defeats there already in Division 1. So, you know, they're certainly looking more ahead to the championship. So a big game there. You know, if Dublin were to lose to Tipperary, and I do expect Waterford to beat Antrim as well, that suddenly leaves a bit of a gap going into the final 2 games, and you'd be looking at Tipperary and Waterford, and Kilkenny maybe still in with a chance of getting into that league final. So that's really what makes this weekend's Dublin and Tipperary game that bit more interesting. Antrim and Waterford at Corrigan Park. big game for both teams. Antrim, their first defeat at Corrigan Park, as a matter of fact, when they played Dublin since 2019. They didn't lose there at all last year, and didn't lose there at all in 2020, from what I remember as well. So, it was a tough one to take, but even at that, in their opening 2 games, Antrim have been super competitive, it must be said, even against Kilkenny as well. Kilkenny more or less didn't have their best starting 15 out, there's no doubt about that. But look, I've been impressed with Antrim. I think they've fought well. They gave the Dubs a lot of problems. They got on their faces. Neil McManus, on his day, one of the best hurlers in the country. He's absolutely exceptional on the ball. Conal Cunning, very good as well. Noel McKenna has been a fantastic addition into this team in recent years. And Neil McManus scoring 2-7 the last day against Dublin. One of them was a penalty. That really shows just how important he really is to this Antrim side. But I think for Antrim, they will want to get a bit more from their team than just Neil McManus. 2-7, as we said, against Dublin. And, Antrim on the day finishing in total with just 6 scorers on the day, which actually isn't too bad, to be fair. But they will need a little bit more, I think, in their forward line than just Neil McManus if they want to cause a scalper or cause a shock or two. I think that will be a huge thing for them. Still waiting on Kieran Clark, obviously, to come back into the team for Antrim. They do have a couple of injuries and a couple of players missing. No Conor McCann the last day out against the Dubs as well. So still a couple of players to come back in for Antrim. And I do still think they'll have enough to avoid relegation. Their meeting with Laois in a couple of weeks will be absolutely huge. For Waterford, what can you say about Waterford? 7 goals the last day out against Laois. Absolutely extraordinary stuff, really, from Waterford, who, let's not forget, are missing a big bunch and a big crop of their players as well, with the fact that Ballygunner won the All-Ireland Club Senior Hurling Championship just 2 weeks ago. They haven't had Desi Hutchinson so far, no Peter Hogan. Stephen O'Keefe obviously hasn't been a regular starter in the past year, but obviously he would have been missing as well if he was an option. So a lot of players missing in that one. No Pádraig Mahoney, who will be coming back into the Waterford team, you'd feel, this year as well. So they've been missing a couple of players, and they've had to bring some younger players in, and they've done really well. You'd have to say. You're looking at Kieran Kirwan. Sounds a bit weird saying that name, doesn't it? Kieran Kirwan, but he scored 1-4 in that full forward position. And I think for Waterford, I think the main thing for them is if they can find some notable players maybe to come off the bench, notable players to make an impact in games, that could be maybe the difference between Waterford making that step up and potentially winning an All-Ireland or not, in my opinion, because there's no doubt their best starting 15 is probably the second best in the country right now, in my opinion, behind Limerick. Desi Hutchinson, Stephen Bennett, who scored 3-8 in that win over Laois. Austin Gleeson, one of the all-time greats really in hurling. You've Tadhg de Burka coming back into the team as well. Brilliant goalkeeper in there as well. So Waterford are a very, very good side. There's no doubt about it. And even Kartik Daly, who came in, getting 1-1 the last day as well. So, they're looking very, very good. Patrick Curran, he contributed with 1-7 in the win over Laois. So, there's a lot of positivity for Waterford at the minute. And I do think with Desi Hutchinson coming back into the team, Peter Hogan, I'm not too sure if they'll come back into the team this week. Might be a little bit early. There's no immediate rush really to get them back into the team. I think even with some of their players resting and without maybe their best starting 15 on show, they still should have enough to oversee Waterford or oversee Antrim in this game. So, and they have gone fairly strong a little bit in the league. Although they have rotated a bit, you've still got Austin Gleeson in there. He scored 1-3 against Laois the last day. Michael Kiley, Jack Prendergast has been starting, Jack Fagan as well. Tom Barron looks like a good option at wing back. So positivity for Waterford, definitely going into this year's All-Ireland series. As I'd say, number 2 behind Limerick in my opinion. I think Galway and Cork are certainly not far off as well. But I think Waterford are definitely ahead of definitely at the top of the chasing pack behind Limerick at the minute. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with Waterford here to get the victory. I think they'll have enough. Going away to Antrim, be a tough game, tough conditions, all the rest. But I think Waterford will have enough. Kilkenny and Laois. Another big game here, and for Kilkenny, they'll be looking to respond, obviously, to that defeat away to Tipperary. It was a real shadow boxing style feel to that game against Kilkenny or against Tipperary. You know, it certainly wasn't a vintage game between Tipperary and Kilkenny, no doubt about it. And Kilkenny so far, in a similar fashion, you could say, to Waterford, where they are missing a couple of players who have been involved with Ballyhale Shamrocks and have also been involved in Sigerson Cup action as well. To be fair, some of the Waterford lads like Michael Kiley and whatnot have been involved in Sigerson Cup action as well. So could we see TJ Reid come back in? Could we see Owen Cody come back in? That will be the big question from a Kilkenny point of view. I think Pádraig Walsh has done very well so far in that centre forward position, scoring 4 points the last day out against Tipperary. I've always been impressed with John Donnelly. I think he's one of the more underrated hurlers in the country. He scored 5 points the last day against Tipperary from corner forward. You've got David Blanchfield coming in, Noel Brazil coming in. So good couple of options for Kilkenny. And I think in a similar fashion to Waterford, you know, no, not to take away anything away from the opposition that they're playing against, but I think for Kilkenny, they can afford to probably maybe give TJ Reid a run out in the final 10 minutes of this game, or Owen Cody as well. I do expect those lads to be on the bench, but I'd be surprised to see them starting in their starting 15. I think they'll be used sparingly throughout the next couple of games in the league, and then when the championship comes around, I think they'll get back in. Because let's not forget, it's a round robin as well in the in the hurling championship this year, which means you really have to manage your squad. It isn't quite like the football, really, where you need to go strong week in, week out, because there's always that risk of it being your last game. Whereas in the round robin, you're guaranteed 4 games. So I think there is an element of managing that squad, and I could see Kilkenny do that. For Laois, I mean, they will be looking to bounce back after what was, just a very, very heavy defeat away at Waterford. A lot of positivity for the first day out against Tipperary. I think the thing is with Laois is they can come close to taking a scalp. They never seem to quite get over the line. But then on the flip side of that, they could be absolutely trashed and hammered. And it's not the first time they've gone, up against one of the top teams and been beaten by such a heavy scoreline. But a 33-point defeat, it was a hard one to take, no doubt about it. Stephen Picky-Marr with 8 points that day. They did have Ben Conroy sent off, Willie Dunphy with a point, Ross King with 4 points. Still awaiting Patrick Purcell and what the crack is with him. Is he going to come back into the team at some point? I think that's the big question from a Laois point of view. He was nominated for an All-Star last year, and he's definitely one of their most talented hurlers in the county. So, there's a bit of expectation for Laois maybe to put in a better performance in this game, but I don't see them winning at Nolan Park. I think Kilkenny should have enough here. And I could see Kilkenny pulling away more and more so in the final 10 to 15 minutes of this game, because I could see TJ Reid coming off the bench, Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen potentially coming off the bench late on for Kilkenny as well. So, I think Kilkenny will have enough here to comfortably dispatch Laois by, I'm going to say, by 9 points. And I think this will be 4 or 5 point game going into the final 10 minutes, and then Kilkenny will pull away from there. We'll move on to Division 1A. We start with Division 1B. We'll just get the table on the screen there to remind ourselves of how things are looking here. So, this division definitely a lot more clear in terms of who's going to be finishing in the top 2 and getting into that Allianz National Hurling League semi-final places. You can see there Limerick, Clare and Offaly very much out of the race to get into the semi-finals, and it very much is down to Cork, Galway and Wexford. Interesting enough, Galway and Wexford, the first game we'll speak about here, these two playing each other this weekend, and this could definitely go a long way to telling us who will be in that semi-final. Galway and Wexford, both, of course, of new managers this year. Galway with Henry Shefflin, Wexford with Dara Egan. I think Galway's strong enough start wasn't too much of a surprise, really. Obviously a big win against Limerick on the second day out, and obviously a very comprehensive win against Offaly the first time out. But from a Wexford point of view, they'll be very impressed with how things have gone for them so far. Beating Limerick the first day out, showed real fight, tenacity, desire. I have to say I've been impressed with Wexford so far. There's been maybe somewhat of an opinion that Wexford maybe might be on a bit of a decline with the fact that Davy Fitz. Did Davy Fitz maybe overachieve a little bit at Wexford there, winning a Leinster title? We don't really know. It's still early days yet. But they've done well so far this year. Mikey Dwyer with a goal against Limerick that day. Oisin Foley's a good addition coming into the team. Rory O'Connor, Jack O'Connor, top class hurler, no doubt about it. So they have a whole host of options Wexford do in their attack, and I think that's definitely what makes it most exciting for them. And 2 big wins as well. Clare not an easy team to beat as well. Clare may be missing a couple of players like Tony Kelly and Aidan McCarthy, possibly still Peter Duggan to come in there. But they are missing a couple of players. So, and Wexford may be missing a couple of players as well. Still have Lee Chin to come back in as well. So, I think a lot of positivity for Wexford after their opening 2 games. And this is a big one. Going away to Galway, a team that's definitely high in spirits at the minute with Henry Shefflin obviously coming in as manager. And even despite the retirement of Joe Canning, who not only is one of the best hurlers in the country, but I'd imagine the leadership that he brings to that Galway team, and I suppose the leadership that he brings. And we see this a lot with teams, when you've got one of the best hurlers, footballers in your team, that can elevate you a bit and that can bring out the best in some of the other players. So even with his retirement, I have been very impressed with how Galway have responded. Like just looking at them in that win over Limerick, which very comprehensive victory in the end, 6 points. Obviously, Limerick finishing the day with 14 men, with Gerard Hegarty obviously been sent off. But for Galway, they do have some of the best hurlers in the country. Cathal Mannion's very, very underrated, been doing it consistently the past couple of years. Fintan Burke, brilliant addition coming into the team with 4 points the last day. Conor Cooney, Jack Cooney in there as well. And still have players like Brian Concannon to come in, and no Evan Nyland the last day against Limerick as well. So for Galway, they still have a lot of players to come in, and David Burke, for example, didn't start versus Limerick as well. So for Galway, a lot of positivity, a lot of players maybe still to come back into the team, and I would expect players like Evan Nyland, Brian Concannon to come back into the team at some point this year, because I think they're both top class hurlers. So home to Wexford, fans definitely be up for this one. Wexford so far have done very well beating Limerick and Clare, but I think this will be a step too far, and I do think Galway, being at home, will have enough. And I think with Henry Shefflin, I think we will see maybe maybe a bit of a similar management style to that of Brian Cody, in the sense of Galway are not going to let up. They're going to be consistent throughout the entirety of the league. Even with rotation, the standards won't drop too much. So I think Galway will have enough here. And I think they'll win it by 5 points. Got Offaly and Clare, a game that has a lot of history in it, obviously in the past, a big rivalry between Offaly and Clare and hurling down the years. A rivalry really that hasn't been prevalent since the 90s now, or early 2000s, you could say. For Offaly and for Clare, I mean, we'll get the league table just briefly back up on the screen there, so you can see it's 2 teams joint bottom with 0 points so far this year. So that definitely adds a lot of pressure for both of these 2 counties. In particular for Clare, I don't think there's too much expected of Offaly to avoid relegation. And I think for Offaly and for Mick Fennelly's men, the main thing will be trying to be consistent in performances, give a good display, give lads game time, but they'll undoubtedly be building towards what looks like a relegation playoff and that Joe McDonagh Cup campaign, which will definitely be their priority this year to get back into the Leinster round robin. For Clare, I mean, look, they have had a couple of injuries, and I've seen Tony Kelly obviously came out recently saying that he will be available in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see, will he feature in this game? Probably not, but will he feature in the next couple of weeks? Maybe just getting a couple of minutes here and there off the bench. That could be huge, because undoubtedly Clare are a different prospect when Tony Kelly is on the pitch for Clare. I mean, you're talking about one of the best hurlers in the country, if not the best hurler in the country. He's absolutely fantastic. Still no real word on Peter Duggan and what the crack is with him. Is he going to be coming back in at some stage? There was an expectation that he'd come back in but that doesn't seem to be the case. Mark Rogers has really come on leaps and bounds for Clare this year. He's been brilliant at Fitzgibbon Cup level, scored 12 points against Wexford the last day out. And, Clare, it's one of them things with Clare, like if you can get Tony Kelly back into the team, you get Peter Duggan maybe in that team as well. John Conlon's obviously come in at centre forward there, obviously having played last year at centre back. So he's back in and around that forward line. Aaron Shanaher, big, strong, tall as an ox, brilliant target man to hoof balls into. Same with Aaron Shanaher as well. So I like the look of Clare. I really do. I think they're one of the teams that's going under the radar, and if they can get their players up to full fitness, I do think they could cause a surprise or two this year. I know a lot of people would look at them as the team that could finish, that will, is probably favourites to maybe finish bottom in the Munster round robin, but I wouldn't be so sure of that. I do think Clare, if they can get things ticking a little bit, I think they could be thereabouts in terms of getting out of Munster and maybe going on a bit of a run and going on a bit of a shock. I suppose the problem is for Clare is that the quality in Munster is just so good, isn't it? You're looking at Limerick, Cork, and Waterford, arguably, maybe the top three teams in the country at the minute. And Tipperary were All-Ireland winners back in 2019. So it's going to be very, very hard for Clare to get out of there. But we'll definitely predict that and discuss that when the time comes around. In terms of this game, going away to Offaly, I think for Clare, this needs to be a win. And I think it will be a comfortable result by 6 or 7 points. I do think they will have enough to win this one. We'll move on then to the final game of Division 1 before we touch on the Division 2A clashes briefly. And Limerick and Cork, look, this might be the game of the weekend for most people. Certainly as a Dublin point of view, I'll be really looking forward to that Tipp game. But Limerick and Cork, this is obviously on TG Caher on Sunday after the Dublin and Kildare game. Look, Limerick and Cork, big rivals. This is probably, for me, going to be the rivalry in hurling now over the next 5 to 10 years. You look at the age profile of both teams. You look at what both teams have done at underage level. They've had some significant meetings in recent years as well in terms of playing in last year's All-Ireland final. They played in the Munster semi-final, quarter-final as well. So these two teams, they're going to get used to playing each other quite a lot over the next couple of years. We're seeing Cork with that underage success at minor level and the under 20 level, and we're starting to see a few of those lads come in. Obviously the likes of Dara Flynn, the likes of Padraig Power coming in there as well, Alan Connolly, Jack O'Connor, who's been absolutely brilliant. For Limerick so far, 2 defeats from 2, which will be, look, we've seen last year they were winless in their opening 3 games in the Hurling League, and there was a bit of discussion: are Limerick on decline? Our teams maybe catching up with them physically. Are they getting a bit stronger now? Are they catching on to the way that Limerick play? And then once the championship came around, and once the going got tough for Limerick, they clicked into gear. They found an extra level within themselves, and really they comfortably won the All-Ireland, didn't they? They came back against Tipperary. They didn't just come from behind. They absolutely blew them away, and then very comfortable against Waterford, and then they absolutely blew Cork away in the first half, and it wasn't even a contest, really. I mean, if it had been a boxing fight, you would have stopped this in the first round. It was an absolute demolition from Limerick. So I think for Cork and for Kieran Kingston's men, they will want a response here against John Kiley, and for Limerick, they're not going to get into the league semi-finals at this stage. They're 4 points behind. You're talking about there needing to be a 2-game swing going into the last 3 games. Not impossible, because Limerick could win their last 3 games. But in terms of the other results, I'm just not too sure if that will happen. But that's obviously not the priority for Limerick. We still haven't seen Cian Lynch come back in for Limerick so far this year. We've seen him in the Fitzgibbon Cup final, and he was sent off that day. So we'll see what happens with him. I would expect him to come back in this game, maybe coming off the bench, or maybe even starting now, with the fact that he doesn't have any more cup commitments or any more sort of college commitments there, we shall say. Cathal O'Neill has been a breath of fresh air for Limerick so far this year. 4 points against Galway and some absolute wonder scores, and there's no doubt that he could be a fantastic addition for this Limerick team coming off the bench, or potentially even starting. But again, you're still looking at that front 6 for Limerick of Shamey, Flanagan, Aaron Galan, Tom Morrissey, Cian Lynch, Gerard Hegarty. I just don't think that front six is going to be changed. You're looking at Cathal O'Neill, Pat Ryan, David Reedy as options to come off the bench. But look, there's still a lot of players to come back in for Limerick, no doubt about it. And still a lot of players to click into gear. Like no Tom Morrissey the last day against Galway. As I said, no Cian Lynch. Gerard Hegarty was obviously sent off, so I don't think he'll be involved this weekend. Cole Hayes came back into the team versus Galway, but probably did look a little bit rusty. So, still a lot to work on from Richie English maybe to come back in there as well. So, or did he retire? I think he might have retired actually. Now that I think about it, but yeah, still a lot to work on from a Limerick. Declan Hannon still to come in as well. So a lot of players still to come in from a Limerick point of view. And for Cork, we know obviously the talent of a player like Patrick Horgan, who is undoubtedly one of the best hurlers in the country. And I'm still amazed that he didn't get an All-Star. I really, really am. I think that's probably one of the biggest injustices in terms of All-Star awards, possibly ever. Because for me, I thought he was one of the best hurlers in the country last year. I thought he was top 3. He was quiet enough in the All-Ireland final, but Cork were quiet enough, so absolutely mental, really. So you'd be expecting Patrick Horgan to maybe make an appearance in this game. Luke Meade maybe as well. As I said, Dara Fitzgibbon been a great addition coming into the team. Shane Barrett as well. Shane Kingston scoring 9 points against Clare. So Cork are looking good. Do you know what, though? I think Limerick are going to win this one, though. With it being at home, with it being at the Gaelic grounds, I think Limerick will have enough here to get the victory. They've lost their opening 2 games. And I think for John Kiley's men, with some of the criticism that's come Limerick's way, really, in the past couple of weeks, with Gerard Hegarty's red card, and a lot of different things have been said about Limerick, I think they'll want to respond. And I think they'll want to put in a performance here, in my opinion. Losing their opening 3 games wouldn't be the end of the world. Look, the focus is obviously going to be on the championship, and they're not going to get relegated. We know that. But I do think that they'll want to put in a performance here. I think it'll be very close, but I'm going to go with a 1-point win for Limerick. I think it's going to be it's going to be very, very close indeed. We won't touch on Division 2 too much, because obviously you don't really get to see any of these games at all, and trying to find match reports and information on these games is, it's like trying to find information from another planet, to be perfectly honest. And it does frustrate me that it is that way. It shouldn't be that way, but unfortunately that's generally how it is. But again, this image here is provided by at GAA League Tables on Instagram and Twitter, so make sure to give them a follow for I suppose the latest information on the current league standing. So you'll see there, Division 2, Division 2A, you've got Down and Carlow leading the lights in Division 2. Look at Down, by the way. 2 games, 2 wins, 4 points. Absolutely incredible stuff. A lot of people might have been expecting them to be in a relegation battle, and they have been absolutely fantastic. Beating Carlow as well. Brilliant stuff from a Down point of view there. You've got Carlow and Kerry and Meath and Westmeath. It's really wide open there for who could potentially, I suppose, creep up on Down. And Division 2B, I haven't really seen anything at all here. So Derry and Donegal with 4 points so far. London with 2 points. Donegal, interesting enough there, absolutely trouncing London, you could say. Is that even a word? I don't know. But they absolutely blitzed London in the last game in Division 2B. And interesting enough, like looking at the score difference, you see Derry and Donegal. If you have a look at the score difference in the just right at the right there, the second last column, you could say, like Derry and Donegal's score difference is absolutely huge. Every other team is on minus score difference. So that probably tells you that Derry and Donegal are by far and away the 2 best teams in that division. And that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But in terms of some of these games, Down in Kildare, we just mentioned there, Down absolutely brilliant in their opening 2 games. And absolutely brilliant stuff from a Down point of view, to having beaten Carlow obviously in the opening day as well. Absolutely, brilliant stuff. And what's actually interesting from down against Carlow was they only actually got 3 points from their starting 15. It was actually the all the other scorers who came off the bench, such as Paul Sheehan and a few other lads in there as well. So, for down, they've done brilliant. And it'd be great if we could actually get to see them play or get to see some of their highlights. That would be absolutely brilliant. But McManus with 5 points the last day out, Paul Sheehan with 5 points, Daithí Sands, who's been a regular feature or a regular starter in the last couple of years for down hurling, with a goal. Chris Egan with a goal in there as well, when they beat Meath the last day out. And beating Meath and Carlow, that's two very experienced teams in this division. So that tells you a lot about how well they've done. For Kildare, I think, maybe a little bit of disappointment so far, sitting bottom of the division. They're definitely on the up in hurling at the minute. And I think a lot of people are looking at Kildare as the team maybe in the next probably 5 to 10 years that could make that step up in hurling and could be a team maybe that could get up to the round robin. They definitely have been dealt a bit of a reality check, though, to be fair, in the last couple of seasons, or in, I suppose, the last couple of games, beaten by Meath back-to-back, obviously relegated back down to the Christie Ring. They have been missing a couple of players with the fact that Naas have done so well in the All-Ireland Intermediate Hurling Championship, and obviously Naas were doing quite well in football as well. So they have had a couple of commitments there, a couple of distractions, and you'd still be expecting players like Jack Sheridan and Brian Byrne to come back in, and they should be a different team when that is the case. So, look, I think Down going up against Kildare at home in their own backyard, a massive chance to put 6 points on the board and lead themselves closer towards that promotion playoff. And I think they're going to do it. I think they've been brilliant so far. Paul Sheehan, Daithí Sands, McManus, they've a wealth of options there. And without having seen them play so far this year because of the lack of coverage, obviously, I have been hearing good things about Down. I really have. And it would be nice to get a bit more insight into them, because if they go up to Division 1, that is one of the stories of the year. It really, really is. Carlow and Kerry, I've been disappointed with Carlow so far, and I've been disappointed with Carlow really over the last couple of years. They just haven't really kicked on in the way that I would have hoped. I remember watching them when they came up to the Leinster round robin, and even when they played Dublin, and they were very competitive in that Leinster round robin. But since then, since having been relegated, it just hasn't worked. They've obviously had a couple of changes in management. Marty Kavanagh's obviously Marty Kavanagh was injured for last year, but obviously he's come back in. Tom Mullally obviously taken over now as manager. And they would have been disappointed with that defeat to Down, because I think they are a team that has really good hurlers in their team and has a potential to maybe creep up and be in that promotion battle. I mean, it was a big win against Westmeath the last time out. Chris Nolan, absolutely brilliant. McDonald with 1-6. Conor Keogh with a point. Ted Joyce getting on the score sheet there from what I can see. So that was a big win for them. It was a huge scalp over Westmeath, but certainly losing to Down would have been a disappointment for them. And I think you're looking at Division 2 really, and the way Division 2 is beginning to unfold, with the fact that I would fancy Down to beat Kildare this weekend. Probably the winner of this game, or the loser of this game, could really possibly be out of the race for promotion. If we even just we'll get the league table up on the screen there again briefly, so you can see there, for example, Kerry with 1 win and 1 loss, Carlow with 1 win and 1 loss, and if Down were to win this weekend, that's a 4-point swing with 2 games to go. It would practically be game over really for whoever loses. So this is almost like a semi-final in many ways for Kerry. But they did look very good the last time out against Kildare. In my opinion, I thought they were brilliant that day. Obviously beating Kildare by a scoreline of 4-18 to 2-16. And, still have Shane Conway, obviously. Actually, he started in midfield, didn't he? He scored 1-5. I didn't see his name there originally. Porrick Boyle with 5 points, Gary Dooley with 2 points, Shane Nolan with 1-1. So that definitely was a very impressive performance, no doubt about it, from Kerry's point of view. Hard one to call, really tough one to call, and I haven't seen really any of these play, so it's a very hard one to call. But I'll go with a draw. I think both sides coming in with a bit of momentum, a lot on the line. I think a draw is the fair result. Westmeath will be kicking themselves after losing last week to or who was it? They lost to, wasn't it? They lost to Carlow. They were absolutely kicking themselves after that loss to Carlow, because Westmeath, in most people's eyes, definitely the favourites to come through this division. Obviously, having won the John McDonagh Cup last year, played Division 1 hurling last year and been relegated. Killian Doyle, fantastic hurlers, big experience in Davy Glennon, for example. But Meath are one of them teams that, they surprise you quite a lot in hurling. They really do, because they have a knack of just producing results when you least expect it. And they've definitely been a team that's actually improved quite a bit in the last year. They beat Kildare last year. I think they might have beaten Kerry or Down, and they nearly got into a John McDonagh Cup final last year. So I think they're looking pretty good down, or Meath. I've been impressed with them, to be fair to them, and even beating Kildare in that game as well, which was absolutely huge for them. Obviously, the first day out, and again, this is probably similar in the sense of whoever loses this game will be looking over their shoulder and possibly be looking more towards a potential relegation battle, which sounds crazy for Westmeath. And whoever wins it will be firmly in contention. And if Meath can take a scalp here and turn over Westmeath, I think that would be an absolute huge statement. Jack Regan's been fantastic the last couple of years for Meath, scoring 12 points. Adam Gannon with a point the last day out as well. So, and Meath did finish with 14 men from what I can see here against Down the last day. So I'm sure that definitely did play its part. But I think Westmeath will have enough to win this one, I think. I think Westmeath, they're by far and away the better side. Here, it will be tough going away to Meath, and obviously a bit of a rivalry between these two down the years. So I think it'll be a tough one for Westmeath, but I think they'll have enough. If they have any serious aspirations about getting back up to Division 1, I think they should have enough, and they should win the game. Before we finish up there was a comment from Philip Corish, who says, do you think Wexford will have a good season? I think so. I think the jury is probably still a little bit out on Dara Egan. Don't really know him too well. Haven't seen what he's done too much so far. But look, to beat Limerick on the opening day out was absolutely brilliant, and definitely a lot more optimism and positivity in the last two league games. I watched them against Dublin in that pre-season cup final, and they were absolutely obliterated. They looked all over the place. There was no defensive organisation whatsoever, and you were worried because Davy Fitz has had a lot of criticism in the last couple of years, but they've always been very well organised defensively. And I think their defence has come on leaps and bounds under Davy Fitz. So when you watch that pre-season cup final, you were a little bit worried. But in the last two games, they've been brilliant. Big win away at Clare, big win against Limerick as well. And I think they're looking good. Will they do anything serious this year in the All-Ireland? I don't think so. I think Galway and Kilkenny are the front two. I think Dublin and Wexford are maybe neck and neck. You could argue the case for either side there. But I do think it'll probably be between Dublin and Wexford really battling out for that third position in the Leinster round robin. Division 2B, as we said there, we're not going to discuss these games really in too much detail, but you can see the league table there. You've got Derry and Donegal buying away and a large there, the two top teams in this division with 2 wins from 2 and a very comprehensive scoring difference as well. So look, it will be interesting to see obviously what happens there. Sligo are playing London, so that could be a potential relegation battle there as well. So we'll see what happens in some of them games as well. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here anyway. Cheers anyone who tuned in to into the podcast and who watched this preview. Let me know your predictions for some of the games in the comments down below. Let me know who you think could take a massive step towards promotion, relegation. Who are the players to watch out for?
and all the rest. So yeah, if you could leave a like, that'd be absolutely brilliant. Smash the like button. Let me know you're enjoying this type of content. And if you could subscribe if you haven't already, absolutely brilliant. There'll be plenty of reactions, match reactions, all the rest coming out this weekend. I don't know what's going on down there. There's a dog screaming here somewhere. But yeah, I think it's time to wrap it up anyways. Cheers anyone who tuned in. My name is Aaron, and I'll see you all in the next one.